Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another HRO Today Educational Podcast. I'm Elliot Clark, the CEO of HRO Today. We publish HRO Today Magazine, HRO Today EMEA, and HRO Today APAC, as well as the producers of the HRO Today forums and educational events held around the world, and we're the managers of the HRO Today Association. Today, we're going to be talking about you. Yes, we're going to talk about you, the audience, and specifically your career. And we've got an interesting example to discuss. In the world of HR leadership, there are numerous career options that are now available to CHROs and the top strategic HR leaders that did not exist a few decades ago. We're seeing CHROs on company boards. We see them being promoted to CEOs and moving into other operational roles. Now, we've explored these options, and today we're going to talk about another option, which is moving to the provider side in outsourcing or consultancy services, etc. Now, while HR leaders moved to consulting and executive search in the past, the nature of these businesses have changed. And now there are complex delivery organizations in industries like recruitment process outsourcing, or RPO, or ITO in the technology space, and BPO that offer career options. And we're going to explore that with someone who actually did make that move. So Jeff Bettinger began his career in education before making a shift to HR. Jeff's HR career includes work for companies such as PetCo and USAA. He then led talent and strategic transformation for life science giant Alcon before becoming the chief HR officer of Nu Skin, a beauty and wellness products company. We know Jeff well. We recognized him several years ago by HRO Today Magazine as the Talent Acquisition Executive of the Year for large enterprise businesses. Most recently, he accepted the transition to the provider side, and he is now the Chief Administrative Officer at Hudson Global, Inc., the publicly traded parent company of the recruitment process outsourcing firm Hudson RPO. Now, Hudson is a leading provider of recruitment process outsourcing, executive search, contingent labor services, and advisory consulting. They are also one of the most highly rated providers on the HRO Today RPO Baker's Dozen, and they have been for many years. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Hudson?
Well, thank you, Elliot. I appreciate the invitation to meet with you today and, talk a little bit with your listeners about my own career journey. But I'll start by, I love Hudson. Hudson is absolutely fantastic. And being part of it in this, brief amount of time so far has really opened my eyes to just the impact that these RPO providers make throughout the world. I've, paid for RPO when I was a CHRO. I paid for RPO when I was a head of talent. And now being on that side, I'm really seeing some amazing things about what it is that Hudson and other providers try and provide for their client companies.
All right. Well, let's get right into it here. Now, you've had a storied career with some very notable major companies as an internal HR leader, and then reaching the C-suite as the CHRO of Nu Skin. Why and how did you make the decision to pursue that next phase of your career at a company like Hudson RPO? Now, you just said you loved it, and that's great. But how did you make the decision to go to a firm like Hudson RPO, the kind of outsourcing firm most HR people, would frankly keep it at arm's length, even in a partnership deal? So what attracted you to the provider side?
I mean, Elliot, for me, it really goes back to that initial shift that I had in my career when I stepped out of education and entered the HR work world as a junior level recruiter for a major supplier of infrastructure and industrial services. And I didn't realize how much I would love the talent acquisition space. When I made that shift, I came on board at a company in Boise, Idaho at the time, and we were in the middle of being bought out by a much bigger company than we were. And the company asked me to relocate to Houston to take on a little bit of a challenging hiring manager. And over the next couple of years, living in the world of talent acquisition was something that filled my cup so full. And it was that idea that I could walk down the hall and look at the names on cubicles or on office doors. And I was able to know that I played a part in this person's life changing dramatically and hopefully usually, for the better. And so when I, had kind of got to the top of the house as a chief HR officer at a couple of different companies, and our current CEO, Jake, came to me and said, hey, I'm looking for someone to come in and help us on the administrative side at Hudson RPO. I just went back to my core passion, which has been this talent acquisition career journey that I launched, a couple of decades ago. And I thought, one, what a cool thing to say that I started as a talent acquisition junior level recruiter, made my way all the way through the career ladder to be chief human resource officer at 2 different publicly traded companies, and now be invited to the provider side where our, 1,000 recruiters that are supporting clients around the world. I would be able to potentially influence them in their own career journeys because I had started where they had started. I had started as that entry level, grinding it out, 70, 80 requisitions sometimes, and seeing the end result that comes from bringing people into a company. So it was, a little bit of, I think I could be a real resource for the employee base that is made up of 1,000 aspiring HR professionals. But then the other side of it was, I just love talent acquisition, and to be the head of IT, the head of legal, the head of HR, and be able to work a little bit on the client side in my role at Hudson just allows me to take all the very best things that I've loved about my HR career and let them blossom in a singular environment.
Well, that's great. It's also good to hear that since I started my career in recruiting, that I may someday actually be a success. So I'm still waiting, and it's been a while. But so let me ask you a 2-part question then. Now you've been working in a provider company for the past 6 months or so. And what's the biggest surprise that you have had? And what do you see differently now that you're on the other side of the desk as a provider executive versus a practitioner executive?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. When I think about it, Elliot, it's the thing that has surprised me the most is the assumptions that I made as a client company when I was paying for RPO services. And when I became the head of talent acquisition at a pretty large organization, I inherited an RPO provider that had just been rolled out within the company. And through the process of, working with them, eventually transitioned to a different provider. And mentally, and then, in the next 8-10 years after that, still worked with various RPO providers who could come in and help us with the talent acquisition, function. And one of the things that I always thought on the client side was, these people really don't care that much about our company. We're just sort of a paycheck for their people and helping them with their bottom line as their organization. But they've got the technology solutions, they've got the talent in place, they've got the flexibility to scale up and down. And so there was this element of assumption that came from me that I thought we were just viewed by our providers as just another account, just another group of people that are servicing some need that the client has, that we as a customer had. And I think that the thing that has been the biggest aha for me has been how deeply passionate Hudson's people are about who it is that we have contracted to work with. I mean, our people don't just love the companies they're working for. They see themselves as integral to the company's success. And I see the discretionary effort that comes out of this team. And it's just completely blown me away that these assumptions that I came to the table with, having paid for RPO services, having paid for executive recruiting services for many, many years into the millions and millions of dollars, my assumptions were wrong. And I can only surmise that if other providers like Hudson have people as passionate about their customers as our Hudson team is, I probably could have used my other providers a little bit differently than I did at the time that I was engaged with them when I was a CHRO or when I was a head of talent acquisition. I would have been able to potentially leverage their passion for my organization in a stronger way because I just, for whatever reason, had created a mental paradigm that, they were faithful to X company and working for that company, and they were all in for that company. And I was just somehow able to help them pay the bills along the way. And I was completely wrong. I mean, I've traveled now in the first 6 months to our teams in Australia, our teams in Scotland and London, throughout the United States. And I can just tell you without almost exception, I have met a group of people that when they wake up in the morning, their whole desire is to make sure that their customers are successful. And that's just not something that was in my mindset when I was paying for the services.
The next question that occurred to me is why Hudson RPO? I think you answered that. So let me ask you a little bit of a different question because I came from the provider side. I was with Connexa, which was later acquired by IBM after I left. But the reality of an RPO partnership is a lot like, it's more like getting married than getting a prison sentence, right? Everyone enters into an RPO partnership expecting it's going to last forever. They don't enter into it on the expectation like prison sentence. Oh, great, I'm going to get parole and I'm out of this deal, right? So, I think at least in the culture of our firm back then, it was very much about what is in the best interest of the client and that long-term relationship. So your observation that sort of your thinking has changed. Have you found that, when you're talking to, former HR executives who are in your personal network or you're friendly with, or that you have some kind of mentor or mentee relationship with, do you find that they believe you? Do you find that they sort of get that and that they've assimilated, oh, maybe I'm looking at this all wrong. Maybe the provider side is more committed to the well-being. I mean, we used to listen to our clients' earnings calls to make sure that they were, doing well and that we were, helping make a contribution, understood their business strategy from the voices of their own CEOs and CFOs. So have you found that your former colleagues sort of say, hey, Jeff, that's an interesting observation, or are they skeptical of that?
Elliot, I think it kind of depends on the relationship that they have. When I bring this topic up with some of my friends, they then pause for a minute and they can pick maybe one or two providers that may provide some level of service in the HR function or the IT function or other, where they have seen that level of commitment and appreciate that I'm emphasizing to them that, no, these people really do care. But then they also clearly can tell that they have some relationships where it really is the more transactional side. And so I think what's happened is maybe some eyes have been opened, but maybe what it really is they've just been able, through the discussions we've had about this topic, to become a little more attuned to who really has their companies and their individual as a leader's success, in mind. I mean, one of the things that I think was very valuable in my own ascension to eventually be in the C-suite was that when I worked with certain partners, I found that they also wanted me to succeed in absolutely magnificent ways. I mean, you mentioned one of them. One of the providers I worked with actually nominated me with my company to be the Talent Acquisition Executive of the Year through HRO. And, I mean, sure, it probably looks good on paper for them to have somebody that they're involved in a relationship, but they sent out a film crew and they did things that really went above and beyond that helped me to understand that my success and my company's success were really, really important to them. So I've had to do some self-reflection to look at how I maybe either was too unappreciative or just lacked the insight to see what I've now seen being on the inside of these organizations. We always worry about our people, quote unquote, going native because they need to remember that they still are paid by our firm, et cetera. And we saw that, with various providers on a broad range of services when I was a chief HR officer. But in a sense, you almost do want them to really drink the Kool-Aid and really be on board with who you are as an organization, especially in this RPO space where you're helping people make such deeply personal decisions about their own future and the future for their families as they relocate or take new roles that you've helped them to connect with.
Some great points. And for people in the audience who have never been to a provider office, you walk through and you will see cubicle banks with a team that says Alcon team or PetCo team or New Skin team, right? So the people belong to a team that is intimately associated with that client's brand and identity. So all good points. So Jeff, do you ever see yourself going back to the practitioner side, or have you drunk the Kool-Aid now too, and you're in it to win it,
I probably would say I'm in it to win it. I mean, you never know what the future holds. And, you have those dream companies out there that you someday might want to be able to be part of. But, at this moment in my career, I mean, here I am, I'd probably say, in the 4-lap race, I'm probably entering the, end of the third and into the fourth, beginning of the fourth lap now. I have never been more fulfilled in my corporate life than I am right now, because of being able to bring together these passions that I've had and the career journey that I've had. And I can bring all that to bear on the organization. I mean, just yesterday, meeting with a potential client, I was meeting with the CHRO who had flown over from Europe to spend some time with us. And to be able to sit in the room and talk the way CHROs talk with one another and see and understand their problems from the angle I was at, almost turned me into a bit of an executive coach with that individual, and at the same time allowed me to bring out this passion that I found 20 years ago when I did the very first recruiting that I did as a junior level recruiter. So I don't know, hopefully that helps, but I'm in it to win it, and I'm having more fun and enjoying the people I work with, probably at the maximum level I've ever seen in my career.
Well, that's awesome, and congratulations on that. We're out of time, but this has been a great discussion, and I think an interesting option for those of you out there in listening land. There are many career options that come out of being a senior level HR leader or a chief HR officer. And this is one to consider. There are jobs on the provider side in a host of related industry organizations. Everyone's talking about skills-based hiring. So maybe your own career should be subjected to that lens a bit of making a few changes. And being on the provider side is one of them. And certainly, Jeff, it seems like you found a home and a great deal of respect and appreciation for Hudson RPO and what it can do. And God, you're so happy there. It makes me feel like you got Christmas early or something like that. But congratulations on that appointment. Jeff Bettinger is the Chief Administrative Officer of Hudson RPO. This is Elliot Clark. Thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to seeing you on our next HRO Today Educational Podcast.